Hey everybody, just another casual conversation. My channel is called Novel World, and I think a new aspect of that name is that we can build a novel world. I think I want to do more of these where I just chat with you and maybe interact with you about particular ideas that I have. I wrote some notes down, and if you see the title of the video, you kind of know what it's about. But have you ever, tried to be present? Found yourself stressed, trying to be present, and nothing's happened. Whether it hasn't happened yet, or there's something in the future that you don't know what's going to happen, and you sort of come to a conclusion before it's even happened. Well, this sort of unnecessary worry is kind of a normal thing in today's society, and it's something I deal with too. And I just found myself kind of taking notes and, want to throw some ideas out there for you that I've come up with because, sometimes trying to be present isn't necessarily our fault. It's the societal structures that kind of make it difficult. And I kind of wanted to run through some that I took notes on. And if you have any more, throw them at me and tell me what you think about the ones I'm going to give you. The first one I have is easy. It's economic pressures. I mean, the world, especially today, runs on money. Capitalism, right? We're always having to plan for the future, whether it be retirement, paying off debt, medical bills, insurance coverage, things like that. And it forces you to think about the future, and you could be completely fine, have nothing wrong with you, but you're worried if you don't have, if you don't have health care. You're worried if you don't have enough money for your retirement. I mean, these are real issues, sure. But, sometimes, especially if you're younger, they're not problems yet. And, in the present, we're often happy or content, in the present, we're often okay. Our health is fine. We have enough to eat. We have shelter. But we bring worries from other times into now, and that's our choice. And sometimes it's a habitual choice, that we have to undo, but we're realizing that it's society, it's this sort of economic pressure and uncertainty that brings that to us, and it makes it easy, and everybody deals with that to some extent, especially here in the United States. So that's number one. The second thing I came up with is just technology. I mean, that's easy to come up with. We have, a 24-hour news cycle, and we have our feed on our phones that are constantly bombarding us with information, emphasizing, fear and negativity. You might hear about political unrest in a different country that doesn't even really affect you. For example, what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia. And someone might pay attention to that. I have. And, what's happening to the Ukrainians and Russians may be sad or may be stressful to somebody, but does it really affect you directly? I think at some point it does in general, but does it affect my daily life? If I were on one side or the other, am I safe? Am I getting bombed? Am I at war? Am I in combat? No, I'm not. But these things might affect me. And, when you got a phone that might give you an alert that says this happened or that happened, it bothers you. So people are often fearful of things that aren't immediately irrelevant, that aren't immediately relevant to them, and it pulls the focus away of being now. And technology is just so good at that. Like I said, that 24-hour news cycle. There used to be the news that came on at 12 and then 6 and then in the evening, at night, maybe 10 o'clock, and broadcast stations still have that, but they also have that 24-hour news cycle, and they manufacture drama for you to keep watching and get that advertisement money. But a lot of times, things are going pretty well, and we kind of get that fear from the TV, that tube. So number three, I wrote down is societal expectations and productivity culture. It glorifies being busy and constantly achieving. Success is often measured uh, by what you're doing and not how content you are at the time. For example, a person might feel guilty for just chilling on the weekend. You might work all week and say, I'm gonna chill. I'm not gonna do much. I'm gonna sit on my stoop, on my lawn. I'm going to go to the park and just sit there, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to worry about work. I'm not going to do this or do that. And some people may be judged because of that. But, life is about living, isn't it? It's not necessarily about always go, go, go. And that's something that our society, expects sometimes, is how productive are you? Are you doing enough? And sometimes just being and just being content is enough. Pressure, uh, makes people feel that simply being isn't enough, causing them to sacrifice being present by worrying about are they doing enough or if other people are judging whether they're doing enough. And I definitely have been guilty of that. Sometimes I have to, tell myself, hey, it's time to chill. You don't have to keep moving. You don't have to keep doing things. And that's that. That's number three. And number four, I wrote down that consumerism in general, it makes it hard to be present. I mean, advertisement, and it kind of exploits your insecurities. They're so good at it nowadays, and exploits your future fears, making people think that they need to buy something to solve their problems. One thing that most of my life that I've had that's annoyed me are salespeople, in general. A lot of times you're doing good, and then you come across a salesperson and they're telling you, hey, you need this, or what about that? And, I understand you're trying to get your little commission and all that, but I'm good, and they often convince people. Some people are like, oh, wow, I didn't know I needed this. You didn't need it most of the time. And that's what marketing will do to you, and that's what salesmen will do to you. Like ad for a anti-aging cream or something like that. You may be content, but then you realize, wait a minute, I have some wrinkles, or my hair is gray, or this or that. You may be content. That just goes along with aging, but you're told that you need to buy this thing and you'll look the way you did when you were 20, which is likely not the case. It creates anxiety about the future and keeps you focused on avoiding potential problems rather than just appreciating yourself as you are today. And that goes for all kinds of things that you may want to buy or consume with the idea of consumerism. You might be content with your TV, but when you go in and see this big giant TV in Target or Best Buy, and it has this 4K on there, and which is cool, definitely great resolution to watch your stuff in, but like you probably were content with it before, and that extra money that you fork out to buy that TV or buy this or buy that, you could have spent going outside, like I always encourage. So, consumerism kind of creates that mindset of scarcity, making people feel like they lack something or need to fix it, distracting them again from the present. The fourth thing I wrote down is our education system. Okay, especially anybody who's gone to school here in America, tell me if this is true. I mean, traditional schooling kind of emphasizes outcomes, grades, test scores, future career goals over the value of learning in the moment. When I'm outside learning, about the history of a particular town or a museum or a library, I enjoy that. And, sometimes that information is useful, but I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much as I was going to be if I was going to be tested on it later on. Would you? I mean, how many people are in there fussing at their kids like, you need to study for that test. You didn't get a good grade. I mean, to be honest with you, I think when we do that, we're kind of pushing against that kid's natural instinct to just be a human. You're making them worry about this stupid test, and this exam that really doesn't reflect on who they are as people. I mean, tests are stressful. I mean, and they're not really realistic. They somewhat are in the structure that we've created here in modern society. But in reality, like, you're making people memorize things, and whether it be formulas or history, things of that nature. But children are taught that doing well on a test is more important than enjoying the process of learning something new. And that carries on into adulthood, and it's ingrained in us, and it's something hard to undo, but nevertheless, it's still the case. Modern education systems in many parts of the world, especially in America, encourage you to not be present. You're worried about tomorrow. Am I going to graduate this grade? Am I going to take this test? And you might say, well, that's just the way things are. There has to be another way. I challenge and dare anybody to give me, down in the comments, give me another alternative. There's another way. This is not necessary. It's the way it is, and it's hard to change these systems. But there's another way other than being tested all the time. There are probably schools out there that maybe don't test. I'm pretty sure there are, but there are probably only a few of them. And so from a young age, again, we're conditioned to focus on what's next rather than what's now. That's number 5. So number 6, I got cultural narratives. So movies, books, media often portray happiness or success or something being achieved in the future and by overcoming a challenge. But sometimes success is just being content, isn't it? One of my favorite movies is La La Land. I love that movie. And, it may not be the best example, but, these two are struggling in this movie and to get to their goals, to their dreams. And eventually they do. I don't think I'm giving away too much because there's more to it. But, you see all that, and then you're satisfied somewhat at the end because, they've somewhat got to where they wanted to. And there's a lot of different movies that have this sort of narrative. And by consuming these movies and these books and media and everything, that kind of also gives us this idea that it's the future is when we're going to be happy. Stories about making it big after years of struggle, framing fulfillment as something that lies ahead. Like getting rich, finding love, achieving fame, becoming this big entrepreneur and things like that. Why are those necessary to be happy in the present? I don't know. You give me an answer. Tell me down in the comments because, I don't see that as being the case. It's normal. It's normal to have that idea in your head, but does that align with human nature? And so these cultural narratives kind of reinforce the idea of happiness and contentment, that are earned later, not necessarily now, So there you go. Number 6. And finally, number 7, one of the biggest things, especially recently, I've noticed, but I mean, always really, is fear-based messaging in society. It's always fear. Fear often motivates our behavior, whether through, political campaigns, public health messaging, corporate agendas. A politician may warn, if you don't act now, everything you value will be lost. This creates sort of immediate anxiety, even if the threat isn't clear or even imminent. And this happens. This has happened for a long time, but we're somewhat manipulated into thinking that we need to hold on to fear. There's something to fear all the time. Of course, we can take care of ourselves. We need to look after ourselves and each other, and make sure that we're safe. But there's not always something to fear, especially in modern society. I mean, nowadays, even though, of course, there's murder and there's crime and there's disease and there's starvation, there's a lot less of it statistically than there ever has been before. more of us can read, more of us are educated, less people are dying. You know, like example of what's happening now in society is, parents are always somewhat fearful that their kids are going to be abducted or hurt. And, kids are staying inside a lot more and they're on their devices, which goes back to, I think with number two was the technology, and they're on their devices. And, back in my day, I sound like an old man now, but I mean, I guess you can consider me Generation X. That's probably going to be another subject because I don't like these generational divides. But anyway, back in my day, we were outside playing and we were scraping up our knee and might break a bone, you might get a little hurt, but you're working together as kids and you learn how to talk to each other and communicate with each other. We'd be out in the field and we make games and create our own rules, where now you play video games that the rules are laid out for you. You don't have to put any effort towards that, and you communicate, via technology, and it's not the same as being able to communicate with another human being, which I think is absolutely essential to move through life. But fear of sending your kid outside to play with a whole bunch of other kids, is just one example. And this fear-based messaging keeps people in a state of heightened concern and makes it difficult to feel safe, in turn making it difficult to feel present. So I think, to me, the first step in sort of countering these things is just being aware of them. And these are what I came up with. Do you have any more that you can share? I'd love to hear it. These are things that cross my mind, but like everybody, I try my very best to be present. I think what prompted this is thinking about like monks and, how they can meditate for, hours and hours, and they seem so at peace. But the difference between me or you and one of these monks is, we have to work. We have to do things. We have a responsibility. We have be responsible for kids and, things. And we don't have time to meditate for hours and hours. And we have to kind of engage in society as it is, which has these structures that some of the structures I've come up with and more, hopefully, that you can share, that we have to sometimes subscribe to, and and I think being aware of it helps you counteract it. Maybe one day when you're stressed, you think, why do I feel stressed? What? I need to turn my phone off. I'm getting too many alerts, being afraid of this and afraid of that. I need to, I'm stressed because I feel like I need to buy this thing that I actually don't need to. I don't need. I'm good. So just thinking about those things. While we can't really change these systems overnight, individually we can kind of reclaim our focus by sort of limiting these fear-based influences, practicing things like gratitude, taking intentional steps to stay present in our lives. And that's it. So that's all I really have for you. Let me know in the comments how do you deal with these pressures if you're aware of them? Are these, new concepts to you? Have you thought about this before? And sort of what strategies kind of help you stay grounded? Let me know. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.